I'm Jean Gray, founder and publisher of American Entrepreneurship Today, a website that brings news and valuable information to entrepreneurs, innovators, and investors all across America. Our podcast series, Experience Voices, explores the journeys of very successful people in the entrepreneurial arena who are open to sharing the key elements that led to their great success. Our guest today is Noah Olson, Director of Innovation at Delaware's statewide economic development organization, Delaware Prosperity Partnership. In his position at DPP, he champions the state's efforts to attract, grow, and retain businesses in Delaware, particularly early stage and inventive endeavors. Our discussion will focus on the numerous resources that support Delaware's entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem. Noah identifies for entrepreneurs, investors, and innovators the state's go-to resources as they navigate the challenges of starting and growing their ventures. DPP, which can be found online at choosedelaware.com, reflects Governor John Carney's commitment to grow the state's business community and further prosperity for all Delawareans. Noah, so great that you're here today on Experience Voices to talk about innovation in Delaware. Tell our listeners a little bit about your background and what that role is in Delaware that you oversee for the Delaware Prosperity Partnership.
Yeah, absolutely, Gene. Well, I'm really glad to be here and honored to be a guest. And, so thank you for taking the time to chat with me today too. So I work for Delaware Prosperity Partnership, or DPP is how we refer to it. And it's a new take on economic development for Delaware, relatively speaking. Our whole organization has only been around for 5 years. We just hit our 5th birthday. But we were started, at the behest of the private sector in Delaware, the business community, as well as Governor John Carney, who at the time had just been elected, to rethink and kind of recreate how Delaware took on economic development. So that's the attraction and retention of companies, but a new and added focus on innovation, and, supporting and helping to grow our innovation and entrepreneurial ecosystems, which are linked closely together. And so that's where my position, as the Director of Innovation comes in. I have a background that is neither scientific or entrepreneurial. I have a public sector background from, working in politics, working for state government, and going back to earn a business degree. And the network that I've been able to develop throughout my career and always working on behalf of Delaware so far has been able to put me in a good position to be an evangelist for Delaware. I can talk about Delaware till the sun comes up, but I think talking about innovation in Delaware and helping to support innovators who are here, entrepreneurs who are here, and the innovation ecosystem is a new approach that we're taking for economic development. And it's one that's gotten some traction and has really taken off over the last 5 years.
From the public point of view, is this about job creation?
I'd say at the top line, yes. Economic development, generally speaking, is about job creation. I will take it to a kind of sub level there to talk about innovation. Innovation is about ecosystem building along with job creation. We want to create and support an ecosystem where entrepreneurs are able to start new companies and find success and be able to grow. So growing a company naturally is almost in every aspect and mean job creation as well. But my focus is not purely on job creation. It is on ecosystem support and creating a space where innovators and entrepreneurs can grow their own companies.
A lot of states are creating the position of innovation director or chief innovation advocate. Mm-hmm. So they're taking a look at their businesses, their ecosystems. So how does Delaware look at its ecosystem?
Well, that's a great question, and I can give a long-winded answer, and I'll start with thinking about it geographically. My focus is on Delaware. I work for a company or an organization that is focused solely on Delaware. But really, when I'm thinking holistically, the innovation entrepreneurial ecosystem is more of a regional effort. So it overlaps with with our geographic neighbors, with southeastern Pennsylvania, Maryland, from the Eastern Shore all the way up to, or on the other side in Baltimore, as well as southern New Jersey. I want to grow companies. I want to grow programs and opportunities here in Delaware. But when it comes to starting and supporting startups in particular, being able to share that there is a program that they might be able to take advantage of in Philly, which is a 20-minute drive away. I'm not going to say no to that or discourage someone from doing that. So my focus is on growing the companies and entrepreneurs here, but I think it is, we would define it a little bit regionally. And then I think on a industry or kind of from the sectors, our innovation and entrepreneurial ecosystem here is mostly focused around some of the state's historic sectors of strength. So fintech or financial services is a longstanding strength of Delaware. Chemistry and advanced materials has always been a part of Delaware's innovation story. And now more than ever, and this is Delaware in the region too, particularly looking into southeastern Pennsylvania and the Philly area, is life sciences. So I think a lot of those sectors have overlapping areas when it comes to innovation and, integrating tech solutions into different types of businesses. That's all innovation. So, if you through tech or AI and machine learning, data analytics, that type of thing, that's important to kind of tie in. For our definition of an ecosystem, both from the geographic point of view as well as the industry perspective.
So if I'm a tech entrepreneur and I am innovating, but I'm not in Delaware, maybe across the line, some other states, even maybe a fintech that's maybe in the Midwest, how should I look at Delaware in knowing I should even just consider Delaware in a place to locate my business?
Yeah. So I think the first answer there is going to be access. I think access is something that is really important in Delaware and is a unique value proposition that would set us apart from a lot of other places. Access to public sector, private sector leaders, access to peers, to customers. Delaware is a small state. We have less than 1 million people in the state. And so the ability to be 1, 2, 3 degrees of separation away from pretty much everyone else here is generally a good thing when it comes to doing business here. Generally a good thing when it comes to, to networking, to being able to make connections easily, particularly when a business is coming in from the outside. If it's a fintech company coming in, you look at our history as a place to really scale up and grow financial services businesses. In the 80s, back in the 80s, believe it or not, we had some legislation that really opened up the door for credit card companies to be able to come to Delaware and grow. And so, financial services represents 9% of our workforce, which is really high in a place like Delaware. And so, I think the access, our history and workforce is really important when looking at Delaware. And I think when we, to go back to the regional approach for how we think about innovation here, we think about that for our workforce too. Somebody from the Midwest, if you're in the middle of Wisconsin, you're a couple hours away from another state, no matter which way you're driving. In Delaware, particularly northern Delaware, you go to a professional parking lot, and you're going to see cars from Delaware, from Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Maryland, all there working here. And so our workforce draws from a wider range than just purely here in Delaware.
No, I think a lot of people don't realize how much talent flows across state lines. Mm-hmm. Everyone, at least from the New York area, it's New York and New Jersey, but I suspect Delaware is doing something very similar in attracting talent. So if I'm thinking of Delaware, I'm a tech entrepreneur, I call you up. What should I expect as far as the process of learning about Delaware, or you qualifying my company that you want to have interest in helping me? Because you may get calls from people where you can see the match just doesn't work. But how do you qualify those inquiries and then lure a company in the first steps?
So I think, qualifying who we could help or who we could have a serious conversation with the bar's very low. We're here to help companies and to educate them about opportunities in Delaware. And so we're happy to talk with anyone about the opportunity that presents themselves here for them to grow. We would want to learn about a company, learn about who their customers are, learn about what their workforce is currently, and kind of think about how they're going to project that moving into the future. If a company's looking at coming into Delaware, we're going to be happy to chat with anyone pretty much at any point and within any stage of their company. If it's a very early stage company, if they're in a growth phase, we're happy to chat.
So what would be some of the resources then and let's all, because I'm sure, as any state, you're hoping to attract well-established companies that bring a larger, employment base into the state. But speaking really in the entrepreneurial and early stage ventures, what would be the resources that would come to mind, generally, and maybe something that's industry specific, if I'm life sciences or fintech, but what are the resources that Delaware touts at this point? Yeah.
So there are, for early stage companies in particular, the state has a couple of grant programs, which isn't necessarily unique, but it represents a new focus for Delaware and providing opportunities to have grants for early stage companies. So there is an EDGE grant. EDGE is an acronym for Encouraging Development, Growth, and Expansion. So EDGE, that is a grant that early stage companies and companies that are in STEM, so pretty broad definition there, they could apply for and compete for a $100,000 grant that the state does. They have a competition that they run twice a year, and they award 5 awardees both times through that. Delaware Prosperity Partnership, DPP, we help lead in a pitch competition called Startup 302, and that is focused exclusively on scalable tech or tech-enabled companies, which are led by underrepresented founders or founders who are often underserved when it comes to raising, capital at an early stage. And that's actually not exclusive to Delaware companies. It's open to companies outside of the state, but we want to help create a relationship and an introduction into the Delaware ecosystem that way. We can connect to resources related to physical space. We have some great wet lab incubators in particular here for the life sciences or chemistry and advanced materials types of firms that are looking to grow. And then for that company that's really starting to hit their stride, particularly life science and chemistry or advanced materials companies, we've worked with the state to create a program called the Graduated Lab Space Grant. And that's going to be a grant where the state will help contribute dollars into the construction of new wet lab space, which is particularly in our region is really in high demand as companies in the life sciences are growing and exploding. There is not a lot of ready to go lab space on the market, and it is very expensive to build. So by having a set aside where the state will help contribute to that construction, we're able to, raise a flag for why building that type of space here in Delaware is attractive.
Are these resources somewhat concentrated in the state, or because we've talked Delaware is one of the smallest states, but is there a concentration? Is it near Dover, or is there a corridor? How does it lay out? That's
a great question, and yes, for a small state, geographically Delaware is very diverse. So in northern Delaware, we're kind of a suburban or exurban type of area where we are close to some of the, a bigger metro region like Philadelphia. And we have our largest city, Wilmington, is in northern Delaware. We only have 3 counties. So we've got we've got Newcastle County up north. In the center of our state, we have Kent County, and that's where our capital, Dover, is. Kent County is, it's slightly more rural, but it has a lot of manufacturing and, logistical type of projects that are there, as well as a really large Air Force base, the Dover Air Force Base. And then our southernmost county, Sussex County, is quite rural, particularly Western Sussex is very rural. And then on the coast there, that's where we go out to our beaches. We have, resort communities as well as ag communities. And I think innovation runs up and down the state. It is a really cool thing to think about. A lot of our life sciences operations, our chemistry and advanced materials operations are located in northern Delaware, particularly down in Sussex County, down around the beaches. We have a lot of activity happening around the blue economy, or kind of tech projects that are happening related to anything in the ocean. So if it's ocean robotics, or there's been a lot of conversations about offshore wind, whether it's coming into Delaware or coming into one of our neighboring states. How do we support, the growth of supply chain and workforce around that? So we consider that part of the innovation ecosystem there. Dover Air Force Base has an innovation lab called the Bedrock Innovation Lab, where they innovate and build new things that are great solutions for problems that the Air Force are having. They also work with the local community, which is an exciting way for innovators and entrepreneurs to get involved with the federal government there. So it's a statewide thing. I would say a lot of it is concentrated in northern Delaware because of our proximity to the Philly region, to I-95, to the Amtrak corridor. We're really right in the middle of Washington, D.C. and New York, where we are in northern Delaware, both by road and by rail. So that's a place where a lot of it's concentrated, but it's a statewide innovation run statewide in Delaware.
How about the universities and areas like SBIR grants or I-Corps? How are they involved?
They're a really big part of our innovation ecosystem. I could spend all day talking about this, so I'm glad you're bringing some of this up. So we have two larger universities in Delaware: University of Delaware, which is in Newark in northern Delaware, and Delaware State University, which is in Dover, so in the center of our state. University of Delaware has an entrepreneurship program called the Horn Entrepreneurship Program, and they work with undergrads, grad students, and faculty to help start a business, to help commercialize research that's coming out of a lab at the University of Delaware. They have a lot of great programming. Delaware State University has launched a program over the last couple of years called the Garage, which is an incubator type of physical space to help innovators within the DSU community come and work and create and kind of collide with each other and build new things. And both University of Delaware and Delaware State are part of the Northeast Regional I-Corps Hub. So I-Corps is a program from the NSF to give small grants to companies as they're beginning to commercialize, and really help them put that commercialization hat on, to put that entrepreneurial hat on, and get out and meet customers and do some early work. And we've seen some great success from companies that have gone through those programs. And Delaware has a great track record for companies receiving SBIR grants. So that's a Small Business Innovation and Research Grant, which comes from the federal government and could come from any variety of different federal agencies. But we have a great program with our state SBDC, or Small Business Development Center office, to help companies apply for SBIR grants, which can be quite large. And then the state also provides a bridge grant for when a company is in between a phase 1 and phase 2 of an SBIR application. So the strengths within our academic sector, helping to push out entrepreneurs and help to commercialize research, especially, is important, and a place where Delaware companies have found great success.
I recently spoke with the co-founders of Carbon Reform, Joe and Nick, and they had some great stories about how they met in some networking event and how they married their two different skill sets. Can you share a little bit about what they tapped into, and they're a good sort of case study of a company that has benefited from these resources?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Carbon Reform, both of Joe and Nick, and I've gotten to know them over the past couple of years as they've really incubated this idea, and the collision of their two skill sets, as you so rightly put it, to build out this company, which is a carbon capture company. They're doing really cool work, but they've taken advantages of the opportunities in our innovation entrepreneurial ecosystem. So they are They're both University of Delaware alums. The first place that they helped to, or the first place that helped them to kind of get their business started and grow is called the Delaware Innovation Space. This is a wet lab incubator that is located on a DuPont campus here in Wilmington in a former DuPont building. It's a state-of-the-art building that has labs, offices, and is really a good place for those collisions, which are important in an entrepreneurial ecosystem. So they started their business in the Delaware Innovation Space. And then they've been able to take advantage of some of the grant opportunities that have grown in Delaware. Both Startup 302, the pitch competition I mentioned, where they won prize money last year, as well as the Edge grant, so the state grant program. They were able to set themselves apart and show that they're a company that has promise and is going to grow here in Delaware. And they're now located outside of the innovation space at a new office and lab facility. So they're really kind of taking that progression through some of the resources here and have been able to grow. I know they're hiring some folks. So, back to that original economic development, creating jobs. Yay. We're really happy to see that. But the fact that they're, able to take advantage of the resources here, and frankly, not just here, but they're, doing some activities and taking advantage of resources in Philly and elsewhere, but they're growing their business here, and that's really exciting.
I understand from them that they've moved into another stage of fundraising and specifically venture capital. So how does Delaware fill out for an entrepreneur who is in a high growth startup?
Yeah.
To get through those different stages? Because you mentioned some of the competition and the grants, but now you got a company which is really going to be hiring. How do you get involved in keeping their momentum going?
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. I think, this is a place that we've seen, traction and activity over the last several years in particular, where companies in Delaware have been able to raise significant amounts of money in a venture capital type of situation. Most of that fundraising is happening outside of the state. So it's outside investors who are coming in to take a look at the company. But those investors are starting to see the value of Delaware as a place to grow a business. So they're not, immediately requiring their company or their portfolio company to move to Silicon Valley or to move to Boston. But they're allowing them to grow where their roots were, which is, for a company like Carbon Reform or others before that, right here in Delaware. That being said, there are quite a few programs here in the state that provide some of that or have the opportunity to provide some of that really first stage, early stage investment capital, kind of the patient capital that you might hear about for early stage companies. The Delaware Innovation Space, which I mentioned previously, in addition to their physical space, has what they call the First Fund. So that's an investment opportunity to put money into companies. University of Delaware and Delaware State University are collaborating on a launch fund, which is kind of a pre-seed or very early stage investment fund, which they're putting together or has been put together recently. They're, on the fintech side, there are funds that are starting to be put together here in Delaware to focus specifically on fintech or on fin health in particular. So working to help support the financial health of customers or underserved communities. And that's going to be a focus moving forward. And, on the horizon there, I think there's going to be some, state supported venture capital, which will come out. And that's something that a lot of our neighbors geographically, have available to their homegrown companies is venture capital that has some state support behind it. And that is coming online for Delaware pretty soon. And that is exciting and is a great opportunity that lies ahead here.
For some ecosystems, the large corporation turns out to be an important part of attracting the startups. And you mentioned fintech as one and advanced materials. Can you share some of the larger companies that are being supportive of the startups and the entrepreneurs?
Yeah, yep, absolutely. And those are two of our biggest industries. So I'll start with advanced materials. advanced materials chemistry in Delaware. DuPont is a big name, and internationally, DuPont is a big company. Was a big company. DuPont, the DuPont company started on the banks of Brandywine River in the early 1800s, and really grew to be this massive company here. And it's gone through its ups and downs and twists and turns in terms of that company, but it still exists here in Delaware, and as do many of its kind of spin-offs or related firms. So there's a company called the Chemours Company, and they have built their global R&D headquarters at the University of Delaware, or proximate to the University of Delaware at what's called their Star campus. They also make investments into early stage companies, and they were part of a funding round for a firm called Versagen, which is a green hydrogen startup. And another great story of a company that's progressed through the various stages of resources that are available for companies here in Delaware. And Chemours participated in one of their recent fundraising rounds. So a great story of kind of two local companies, one huge, one just getting started, working together. On the fintech side, I think one of our banks, which is again a big nationally known brand, which is Discover. They are headquartered here in Delaware, and while they have personnel and offices nationwide, they're doing a lot to help support the fintech community here in Delaware. They're working with the University of Delaware right now to finalize the building of a specifically a fintech dedicated building on University of Delaware Star campus again. And they're putting efforts in to build programming and funding opportunities for fintech companies here. And so they're a great partner to work with. I think on the, again, kind of advanced materials or ag too. Ag is our biggest industry in Delaware. Believe it or not, after all, I've talked about life sciences and fintech. For a small state, a lot of our southern part of the state is rural. And so ag is our biggest economic driver here. A company called FMC, which has done many things in the past, but right now they're focused on crop protection through some of their connections to legacy DuPont companies. They're a great partner of working, providing support resources to early stage companies. And they're another great partner to work with. I could go on, I think, for a long time. I was going to say,
we've covered a lot. You are a wealth of information for innovation in the ecosystem. But actually, what caught my eye or ear was the whole aspect of that agriculture is a big part of your economy. Can you spend a little bit more on what the crops are and the portion of your economic produce is?
Yeah. So the biggest thing in Delaware is chickens. I mentioned that Delaware has less than 1 million people. We have quite a few times that in chickens every day. So poultry is our biggest crop here. And a lot of our farmland goes to supporting that industry as well. But we're seeing more in aquaculture, so farming that is either offshore. So in Delaware's Inland Bay, there's a lot of farming happening there with oysters in particular. Also, indoor ag is starting to become a more popular option for growing crops. And on the economic development side, we're seeing a lot of activity and interest in indoor ag in Delaware, in part because of our land, but in part because of our geographic location. The kind of being at the heart of the Mid-Atlantic and able to touch a really large population of customers within a day's drive, and thinking about that from a fresh crop point of view is important. So we're seeing a lot of opportunity there, but the short answer to the question is poultry and chickens are the biggest part of our ag economy. Well,
we have covered a lot, and I think anyone listening to our podcast will have some really concrete information to act upon if their company is starting and growing and looking for resources. So as we're entering post Labor Day, when the business cycle tends to kick up, how about we end our conversation on what are some of the things in the coming months that are happening in the States? So if I'm listening to this and I'm thinking, I'd like to come down to Delaware, are there events or certain occurrences that I should be aware of as the business cycle starts up?
Yeah, good question. And yeah, we're heading into, I think it's a combination of just generally it being a busy time for business and, the continual kind of, re-entry into doing things in person and events happening in person again after, as we continue to kind of come out of COVID. One event that have been helping to plan, it's happening on October 4th. So just right around the corner really, but that'll be the Delaware Entrepreneurial Summit. We're going to block off, a city block in downtown Wilmington and have, a full day of programming, focused on entrepreneurship for current entrepreneurs, for prospective entrepreneurs. And there's going to be, the culmination of the day will be the finals for a pitch competition, which is led by the Newcastle County Chamber of Commerce called Swim with the Sharks. So that'll be a fun day, where we have, sessions all day. We've got a beer garden. That's going to be a great event and something to highlight a lot of what's going on down here. And then throughout the fall, I host a monthly meeting of all of our entrepreneurial and innovation resource groups. So we get together once a month to talk about everything that's happening and going on. And we try to do a lot of communicating at DPP to make sure, particularly within our broader communities and ecosystems, that we're talking about the same things and we're not competing on events and we're working hard to collaborate with folks, and sharing everything that's going on. So, there are monthly events, and something that's starting to happen more are smaller meetups for future founders or for current founders. And something that we're looking to do is create more opportunities for collision between entrepreneurs as they're getting started and thinking about growing their companies.
Well, those are great examples of Delaware being a dynamic ecosystem for sure. So that's our wrap, Noah. It's been great speaking to you. I'm glad you came in as a guest for Experienced Voices, and I'm looking forward to chatting with you in the future because I can see there's a lot happening in Delaware.
There's a lot. It's a great place to set up shop and to grow your business. And, the last word I will say again is access and how important that is, as an innovator or an entrepreneur is access to an ecosystem and to the various parts that make that up. And I think in Delaware, we're able to really do a good job of granting access and helping to get folks in. So yeah, check us out at choosedelaware.com. I'm happy to, as you can tell, happy to chat Delaware anytime, anywhere.
You've been listening to the podcast series Experienced Voices, hosted by Jean Gray, publisher of American Entrepreneurship Today. Sign up for the series at AmericanEntrepreneurship.com.